shatters. You have the barrel of the bat in your hands, and you throw it.
If I wanted to hit him with that bat, I would have hit him with that bat.
And you got to learn some moves of karate, and we were joking around with it. And then after the game, he calls me and he's like, I didn't know he was going to throw the bat at you. We didn't plan for that one, you know?
Mike Piazza is rightfully celebrated as the greatest offensive catcher in the history of baseball. His plaque in Cooperstown tells the story of a legend. He holds the record for most home runs by a catcher. He posted a career slash line that stands among the best. He earned 10 Silver Slugger Awards. But his career was defined by more than just numbers. It was shaped by intense, personal, and unforgettable conflicts. One feud in particular was so intense that it led Piazza to declare about his rival, "I never respected him." This was just one of the on-field wars that defined his career. We're going to break down the 4 players Mike Piazza absolutely hates. The feud with Roger Clemens stands as the most infamous rivalry in modern baseball history. It didn't start with a beanball. It started with Piazza's bat. Clemens had built a career on power and intimidation. He was the ornery rocket. He used the inside fastball to antagonize batters and establish dominance. But Piazza systematically dismantled him. In just 22 career plate appearances against Clemens, Piazza boasted a batting average over 400, with 4 home runs and 10 runs batted in. This wasn't just success, it was humiliation. On June 6, 1999, in their first meeting as crosstown rivals, Piazza hit a double and a 2-run homer off Clemens at Yankee Stadium. A month later, on July 9th, he delivered a 3-run, tie-breaking home run at Shea Stadium. The pattern of embarrassment continued. On June 9th, 2000, Piazza hit a towering grand slam to dead center field off Clemens. These were public embarrassments that left the Rocket humiliated and sparked media speculation that he was losing his stuff. Piazza's repeated success stripped Clemens of his aura of invincibility. His home runs were a direct assault on Roger Clemens's professional identity. This set the stage for retribution. Clemens publicly stated his intention to be more aggressive in his approach to the Mets catcher. On July 8, 2000, during a Subway Series game at Yankee Stadium, that promise manifested in shocking violence. Clemens unleashed a fastball that struck Piazza directly in the batting helmet. The impact sent Piazza collapsing backward into the batter's box. He was diagnosed with a concussion. The injury forced him to miss that year's All-Star game. He walked off the field very gingerly and obviously groggy. Clemens insisted the pitch was unintentional. He reportedly attempted to call Piazza to apologize. Piazza unequivocally rejected the call. Instead, he held a press conference. His statement was direct and accusatory. He was unequivocal that Clemens had hit him in the head on purpose. He argued that a pitcher of Clemens's caliber possessed far too much command to claim butterfingers. While Piazza admitted in a strange way to finding it flattering that Clemens felt compelled to resort to such measures, he made it clear that he had lost all respect for Clemens because of it. He publicly agreed that Clemens's act was cowardly. He argued that if a pitcher wants to send a message, the unwritten rules dictate hitting a batter in the back or ribs, not in a way that threatens his livelihood. With that press conference, the athletic rivalry was officially transformed into a deeply personal and public feud. This feud was only getting started, and it was about to get much weirder. It makes you wonder, in today's game, would Clemens have been suspended for months? Let us know what you think the punishment should be in the comments. And if you're enjoying this look into baseball's biggest rivalries, make sure to hit that subscribe button. The simmering animosity boiled over on baseball's most luminous stage. Game 2 of the 2000 World Series, the first Subway Series since 1956. The matchup was already freighted with intense local significance, but the history between the two stars added a layer of personal intrigue that captivated the nation. In the top of the first inning, Piazza came to the plate to face Clemens for the first time since the July beating. On an inside fastball, Piazza's bat shattered upon contact. The ball went foul. The barrel of the bat helicoptered toward the pitcher's mound. What happened next remains one of the most bizarre and debated moments in World Series history. Clemens fielded the jagged shard of maple. In a motion of pure aggression, he flung it in the direction of Piazza, who was running down the first base line. The splintered wood flew across Piazza's path, missing him by a matter of feet. Piazza, perplexed, stopped in his tracks. He turned and began walking toward the mound. He audibly asked Clemens, "What's your problem?" The confrontation led to both benches was clearing. The scene was more one of confusion than outright brawling. Amid the chaos, Clemens offered the umpire an explanation that would become infamous for its absurdity. "I thought it was the ball." The excuse was met with immediate and universal skepticism. Television announcers on the live broadcast immediately identified it as a blatant act initiated entirely by Clemens. The logical fallacy of the explanation was glaring. Even if one were to grant the unlikely premise that a veteran pitcher could mistake a jagged piece of a bat for a baseball, throwing it at the batter running to first base makes no tactical sense. Clemens's action was not a calculated threat. It was a moment of pure, irrational rage, a psychological break on a national stage. The context was one of extreme pressure. The World Series, against a city rival, facing the one batter who had consistently dominated and humiliated him. The sudden event of the bat shard flying toward him appears to have triggered an unthinking, impulsive reaction. The sheer illogicality of throwing a sharp object at an opponent, risking injury, ejection, and suspension in the most important game of the year points away from premeditation. The nonsensical excuse that followed was not a clever deception. It was the flustered, panicked response of a man who had momentarily lost control. This was not baseball strategy. It was an emotional eruption. Years of frustration and adrenaline momentarily overrode all rational thought. The incident became a defining moment not just for the rivalry, but for both players' legacies. For Piazza, it was a test of composure under the brightest lights. For Clemens, it became a stain on his reputation that no amount of strikeouts could erase. The moment transcended baseball. It became a cultural touchstone, replayed endlessly on highlight reels and dissected in sports bars across the country. The image of Clemens, wild-eyed, holding a piece of broken bat, became symbolic of a rivalry that had spiraled beyond the boundaries of normal competition. The World Series stage amplified everything. What might have been a forgettable spring training altercation became an indelible part of baseball lore. The pressure of the moment, the stakes of the game, and the history between the two men combined to create a perfect storm of tension that exploded in that bizarre first inning. In his memoir, Piazza expressed frustration that a physical fight never occurred to provide closure. He wrote that Clemens screwed up the script by babbling about the ball to the umpire instead of offering the proper invitation to a brawl, thereby sabotaging Piazza's opportunity for payback. After the bat-throwing incident, Major League Baseball levied a $50,000 fine for inappropriate conduct. The fine was nonetheless viewed by fans and media as a slap on the wrist. It crucially did not include an ejection or a suspension from the World Series. Clemens remained in the game, pitched 8 scoreless innings, and the Yankees went on to win the series in 5 games. With the official punishment seen as lacking, an intense media and fan pressure began to build. The narrative immediately shifted to the unwritten rules of baseball justice. Fans demanded that the Mets retaliate against Clemens at the first available opportunity. This expectation festered for nearly 2 years. The anticipation was so high that when Clemens' spot in the rotation did not line up for a start at Shea Stadium in 2001, Yankees manager Joe Torre was widely accused of hiding his pitcher to avoid the inevitable confrontation. The long-awaited moment finally arrived on June 15, 2002, during a regular season game at Shea Stadium. The Mets starter that day, Sean Estes, was thrust into the role of enforcer. In what became an anticlimactic yet symbolically necessary act, Estes threw his first pitch to Clemens behind the batter's back, a perfunctory nod to baseball's code of an eye for an eye. The pitch prompted immediate warnings to both benches from the home plate umpire, effectively ending any chance of further escalation. Many Mets fans were furious, feeling Estes had failed to deliver the direct, physical retribution they craved. The story had a bizarre, behind-the-scenes twist that diffused the tension long before the pitch was thrown. Reports later emerged that Estes and Clemens, through a network of mutual friends, had reached a tacit approval or understanding about the situation the night before the game. Clemens had essentially given Estes the green light to throw at him. What appeared to be an act of aggression was transformed into a piece of prearranged baseball theater. It wasn't a real fight. It was staged. The ultimate irony of the day came at the plate. After failing to hit Clemens with a pitch, Estes delivered a far more satisfying form of revenge. In the 5th inning, he hit a 2-run home run off Clemens, contributing decisively to an 8-0 Mets victory. Piazza added his own home run off Clemens later in the game, providing a fitting, scoreboard-driven conclusion to the long-simmering hostilities. If the Clemens feud was a war, Piazza's beef with Pedro Martinez was a mess messy, far-ranging web of beef. This one started when they were teammates. The friction began because Pedro's brother Ramon was frustrated with Piazza's mediocre defensive skills behind the plate. According to Pedro's own book, the initial problems stemmed from Ramon's frustration with what he perceived as Piazza's mediocre defensive skills behind the plate. This critique of Piazza's catching became a point of contention within the clubhouse, with Pedro taking his brother's side. There was also a cultural and class divide. Piazza was viewed as the rich American kid, a stark contrast to the Martinez brothers, who had come from a humble background in the Dominican Republic to make their way in the majors. Pedro held a grudge, believing that Piazza had belittled him during contract discussions, seemingly in pursuit of a record-breaking deal for himself. For Pedro, an extremely loyal little brother who didn't forget a grudge, this perceived slight was a foundational element of their long-standing beef. The feeling was mutual. In his own book, Piazza acknowledged that he viewed the young Martinez as a little prick when he first joined the Dodgers, confirming the mutual dislike from the very beginning. After Martinez was traded from the Dodgers, the simmering tensions from their time as teammates escalated into an open, on-field rivalry. Once they became opponents, first in the National League and later in interleague play, their personal animosity frequently manifested between the lines. The conflict was characterized by a pattern of aggressive pitching, including beanballs, and consistent jawing in the media that kept the feud in the public eye. Adding another layer of personal attack to the rivalry, Martinez publicly insinuated that Piazza's powerful physique and offensive success might be the result of steroid use. This charge, though never substantiated, was a direct assault on Piazza's integrity and accomplishments, deepening the personal nature of their conflict. The steroid accusation stung Piazza particularly hard. It wasn't just an attack on his performance. It was an attempt to delegitimize everything he had worked for. In an era when performance-enhancing drugs were casting a shadow over baseball, Martinez's insinuation carried serious implications. Piazza had built his career on natural talent and relentless work ethic. The suggestion that his success was chemically engineered was a fundamental attack on his character. This made the feud personal in a way that transcended on-field competition. Unlike the clear cause and effect of the Clemens feud, the rivalry with Martinez was built on a foundation of intangibles. It was fueled by subjective assessments of character, defensive ability, and professional respect. There was no single iconic moment like the bat throw. Instead, it was a persistent, simmering conflict that played out over years through a series of smaller confrontations and public comments. The rivalry's long and winding path took a final, ironic turn in 2005 when Pedro Martinez signed with the New York Mets, making him and Piazza teammates once again. The move necessitated an awkward but professional coexistence. The long history of bad blood between the two Hall of Famers remained a notable undercurrent to their shared time in Queens. Both men were professionals. They managed to work together, but the tension never fully dissipated. It was always there, lurking beneath the surface of every interaction. Piazza was known for a calm and collected demeanor, but what happened when that finally broke? This brings us to Guillermo Mota. The conflict with Dodgers reliever Guillermo Mota simmered over 2 consecutive spring trainings. The history between the two began on March 28, 2002, when Mota hit Piazza in the hip with a pitch during an exhibition game. An inning later, as Piazza was leaving the field, he confronted Mota and grabbed him by the collar before players intervened. The feud reached its boiling point a year later, on March 12, 2003. With the Mets trailing 10-1, Piazza stepped to the plate against Mota. The first pitch was inside, visibly angering Piazza. The very next pitch from Mota drilled Piazza in the shoulder. This time, Piazza's temper exploded. He immediately dropped his bat and charged the mound with clear intent. What followed was a moment of infamy for Mota. Instead of standing his ground, he threw his glove at the charging Piazza. Then he turned and fled toward the Dodgers dugout. Mets manager Art Howe later described the scene by saying, "The guy ran like a scared rabbit when the man came after him." The incident sparked a wild bench-clearing scene, with Piazza's teammate Jeremy Burnitz chasing Mota into the dugout as other players tried to restrain the enraged Piazza. The confrontation did not end on the field. After the game, Piazza reportedly went to the Dodgers clubhouse in search of Mota, who had already left the ballpark. This incident reveals the raw anger that Piazza kept under his controlled exterior. These feuds were integral to his narrative. The Clemens War, born from Piazza's athletic dominance, which led to humiliation and violent retaliation. The Pedro beef, rooted in Piazza's mediocre defense and his own admission of dislike for the young Martinez. The Mota affair, which revealed his raw anger when his restraint finally broke. These conflicts, amplified by the relentless New York media, are what forged his legacy. They transformed him from a one-dimensional slugger into a complex, battle-tested icon. These on-field wars proved he was as tough as he was talented. His journey through these fires cemented his legacy, not only as the greatest hitting catcher of all time, but as a Hall of Famer defined by his resilience. What's your most vivid memory of these Mike Piazza feuds?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.